What's up, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and it's time for another Xanathar's Guide / Unearthed Arcana review video comparison thing. This time we're talking about the Fighter-Arcane Archer. What can I say? I think the first iteration of Arcane Archer was, it was probably a little OP, but it was better than the revised version, and I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on the Xanathar's version. But don't just take my word for it. Let's take a look ourselves. So, we have the revised subclasses version, which is where Arcane Archer got revised the second time. So I'm actually going to jump down here to Arcane Archer's lore, because that's the first ability that's on the other page. So, at 3rd level, you learn magical theory or some of nature's secrets of nature. You gain proficiency in Arcana or nature. Arcane Archer's lore, you basically get proficiency in Arcana or nature, and then you choose either Prestidigitation or Druidcraft. So that's a cool little ability. That was not a thing you got before. Prestidigitation or Druidcraft, useful, kind of fun little spells, not a bad thing. So you may have saw here Magic Arrow. When you use this, learn this archetype at 3rd level, whenever you fire a non-magical arrow from a short bow or long bow, you can make it a +1 arrow to do attack and damage, and that's it. It just becomes a +1 arrow for free. Great. That's not an ability until 7th level that you get here now, and all it does is become a magic arrow for the purposes of overcoming attack resistance and immunity. It does not become +1. It just becomes magic. So basically, at 7th level, your ability, if you happen to come across a magic bow, your 7th level ability is useless. It doesn't do anything for you. I'm not saying that this is the right way to go, and I'm not saying that this isn't overpowered, because a freebie +1, your bow just automatically is +1 with longbow or short bows. Technically, this makes it a magic arrow, which means if you had a magic bow, this basically gives you unlimited magic ammunition, right? Because you could have a +1 arrow and a +1 bow. Those effects stack, so you'd effectively have a +2. This is when you fire a non-magical arrow from a short bow or long bow. It makes it magic, therefore giving you no need to ever purchase magical ammunition, because you have +1 magic ammunition granted from your class, but your +1 bow would sort of counteract that, if that makes sense. Now, this ability is shifted to level 7, and at level 7, it just makes it magic, which I feel is kind of shitty. And then we have Arcane Shot, which was the other 3rd level ability. When you gain this feature, you learn 2 arcane shots of your choice. Once per turn, when you fire a magic arrow from a short bow or long bow as part of the attack action, you can apply one of your arcane shot options to that arrow. You decide to use this option when the arrow hits, unless the option doesn't involve an attack roll. You have 2 uses of this ability, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. You gain an additional arcane shot option at 7, 10, 15, and 18. Each option also improves when you become an 18th level fighter. Here, I think it's basically exactly the same. Once per turn, when you fire an arrow, blah, 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 you decide to use it unless it doesn't involve an attack roll. Yeah, that's exactly the same. No. I think, my personal opinion, and I will recommend this to all of you, you can take it or leave it, give them arcane shots equal to their intelligence modifier. Makes everything better, right? I mean, if their intelligence modifier is a 1, well, okay, that's unfortunate. If their intelligence modifier is a 5, that's great. If it's a 2, then there's nothing different, but that's how I would break it up, because that also will help to, you're going to need intelligence to use some of your the DCs of your arcane shots, so you're going to want to have a decent intelligence or try to track down a headband of intellect. That's my recommendation. Fixes a lot of the what I perceive to be power issues with the class. Personal opinion, arcane shots number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, or your intelligence modifier per short or long rest. Cunning Shot, a 7th level ability here. When you make an attack roll with a magic arrow and miss, you can use a bonus action to reroll the attack against a different target within 60 feet of the original target. That is exactly the same. And again, it's with a magic arrow, so it works with your magic arrow 7th level ability. So that's a thing. 15, we have Ever Ready Shot. If you roll initiative and have no uses of Arcane Archer or Arcane Shot remaining, you regain 1 use. That is exactly the same. So, your whole class. This is my problem with this. Fighters, you're a fighter. You're gonna be taking short rests because all of your shit comes back on a short rest. But, so this ability is a 15th level. Let's talk about you as a 15th level fighter. You have 3 attacks per turn, all the time, and you have access to Action Surge. If you have used your 2 arcane shots, you now get 1 back at the start of the initiative, so you have 1. At this point at level 15, you could potentially have this turn 6 shots, and only 1 can use your arcane shot, which is your whole thing, right? That is your whole class feature. Everything cool that you can do, with the exception of Prestidigitation or Druidcraft, the ability to have an arrow be magical when it was not already, but at level 15 it definitely will be. And if you miss, you can roll again and try to hit somebody else, which is great. And that's an unlimited thing. When you miss with an attack, and you can use... Oh, I'm sorry, it's a bonus action to reroll. Was it a bonus action before? Yeah, okay, so it's a bonus action. So it uses your bonus action, which you have a couple things you can do as a bonus action. So your bonus action to reroll against somebody else. Okay, not bad. But your entire... This is the same thing that a lot of people encountered running a Beastmaster Ranger. You have your animal companion, but your entire class is keyed off of your animal companion, and until, like, much higher levels, a fireball takes out your animal companion, and your whole class features are defunct until you can get that creature back. So you basically have 2 shots, potentially 3, right? I mean, you use your 2 shots, and then if you use your 2 shots in the fight, you don't get any more back. This one gives you 1 back when you roll initiative, but that means you've already used your 2 and you're trying to get 1 more. But everything cool that you can do as an Arcane Archer is tied to the number of your Arcane Shot abilities. If you have none, you're just guy with a bow, right? I mean, you're not even like a champion fighter will get more use out of their potentially critting on a 19 all the time than you will with maybe having enough arcane shots left. I don't know what the right way is to fix this class, and I don't pretend to, but I think the intelligence modifier, number of times of arcane shots, will go a long way, and then that way giving you 1 more on when you roll initiative is better. But I digress. I think the original Arcane Archer was better. It was a little overpowered and needed some tweaking for sure, but I think, if I recall correctly, it handled things a little bit better. So Arcane Shot, anything that has a DC is going to be DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your intelligence modifier, meaning you're going to want to have a good intelligence. And then there are basically the new one is each arrow is after an arcane school of magic. So you have the Banishing Arrow in the Unearthed Arcana. Your Abjuration magic temporarily banishes a target to the Feywild. They must make a Charisma save or be banished. While banished, its speed is 0 and it's incapacitated. At the end of its next turn, it reappears in the space it vacated. And when you reach 18th level, this does 2d6 force damage. Your Banishing Arrow now is basically, I think, the same. Harmless location on the Feywild. Speed is 0, incapacitated. End of its next turn, it appears. 2d6 force damage when it gets upgraded at 18. Here we had the Brute Bane Arrow, which was a necromantic one. Here, I don't think we actually... What was this? This one is Beguiling. This is your enchantment one. Do we have an enchantment one that we can look at? Necromantic, Evocation. This is the Mind Scrambling Arrow previously. Choose one of your allies within 30 feet of the target. If the arrow hits, the target takes an extra 2d6 psychic damage, and must make a wisdom saving throw, or it can't attack the chosen ally or include that ally in a harmful area of effect until the start of your next turn. This effect ends early if the chosen ally deals damage to the target. The psychic damage goes up to 46 at 18th level. Now, it is, the creature hits 2d6 force damage. It's just called Beguiling now. The target must make a wisdom saving throw, or it is charmed by the chosen ally until the end of your next turn. The effect ends early if the ally attacks the charmed target, deals damage to it, or forces it to make a saving throw. It deals 46 again. So the psychic damage remains the same. It must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. Here, it wasn't a technical charm. It must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, or it can't attack the chosen ally or include that ally in a harmful area of effect. It ends early if the ally deals damage. Now it's if the ally deals damage or forces it to make a saving throw. And it is the charmed condition, meaning that creatures that have advantage against charm or get their bonuses here, and spells that end the charm effect also have work here. We had the bursting arrow. If you hit a creature, the target and each creature within 10 feet takes 2d6 force damage, up to 46 at 18th. Here it is, again, the exact same thing. Immediately after the arrow hits the creature, it and all creatures around it take 2d6 force damage, 4d6 at level 18. You have the grasping arrow, is your conjuration one. If the arrow hits a target, the target takes an extra 2d6 poison damage. Its speed is reduced by 10, and it takes 2d6 slashing damage the first time on each of its turn. It moves 1 foot or more without teleporting. The target and any creature that can reach it can use its action to remove the brambles with a successful athletics check against your arcane shot DC. Otherwise, the brambles last for a minute or until you use this option again. The poison and slashing damage both go to 46 at level 18. I skipped ahead, but we'll come back. Grasping arrow, 2d6 poison, reduced strength check. Yeah, so it's basically exactly the same. We had up here the Brute Bane arrow, was called. It's your necromantic one. If your arrow hits a creature, it takes 2d6 necrotic damage. It makes a con save. On a failed save, the damage of the target's attacks is halved until the start of your next turn. Here it's called Enfeebling Arrow, which makes more sense. It takes 2d6 necrotic damage. It makes a con save, or the damage dealt by its weapon attacks is halved until the start of your next turn. This is exactly... Here it was a con... Yeah, it's a con save, so... Alright, we'll scroll down. Grasping, Mind Scrambling, Piercing. Your Transmutation Magic. Use this option. You don't make an attack roll for the attack. Instead, the arrow flies forward in a line that is 1 foot wide and 30 feet long before disappearing. The arrow passes harmlessly through objects, ignoring cover. Each creature in that line must make a dex save. On a failed save, a target takes damage as if it were hit by the arrow, plus an extra 1d6 piercing damage. On a successful save, a target takes half as much damage. And piercing damage goes up to 2d6. This is going to be where you're going to want to have a nice, powerful bow that does a lot of cool extra stuff. Because it's going to, like, it would normally take the arrow's damage. So if you have a boosted power bow, that would be what you'd want there. 1d 30 foot long, dex save. Creature takes as much damage if it's hit by an arrow. So that's exactly the same. Seeking Arrow, Divination Magic. When you use this option, you don't make an attack roll. Instead, choose one creature you've seen in the past minute. The arrow flies towards the creature, moving around corners if necessary, ignoring 3/4 and half cover. If the target's within the weapon's range and there's a path large enough for the arrow to travel to the target must make a dex saving throw. On a failed save, it takes damage as if it were hit by the arrow, plus a d6 force damage, and you learn the target's current location. On a success, it takes half as much damage, and you don't learn the location, and the damage goes up to 2d6. This is cool because it's within the range of the bow, and if you have a long bow, the range is 600 feet, so it just goes out and hits them at the 600. Let's see, the arrow flies toward the creature, around corners. Target is within the weapon's range. Yeah, dex save, failed save, it takes... Yeah, so that's exactly the same. And then lastly, we have the Shadow Arrow, which is your illusion one. The arrow hits a creature, it takes 2d6 psychic damage, and must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, being able to see anything farther than 5 feet away until the start of your next turn, or 4d6 later. Wisdom saving throw, and see anything with more than 5 feet away until the start of your next turn. yeah, so that is pretty much it, guys. So basically, this looks like the one that received the least amount of input or updates, other than like switching a couple of abilities, like moving Magic Arrow from being a functional mechanical benefit to just making an arrow magical to 7th level, which I feel like that also discourages one to get a magical bow, or or maybe not. Like, again, that feature is a non-issue if you have a if you have a +1 bow, one of your 7th level abilities as an Arcane Archer, the published version, is nothing. It doesn't do anything for you, which I feel like that doesn't seem like a Wizards of the Coast thing with 5th edition. I do feel like, I think there was a lot of typos on some, like, there were some typos that made their way through to the production in this as well. They were fixed when I did a review of the Barbarian, but the table says, like, 2d8 for the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, and then the text says 2d6. That's a simple thing. Some issues made it through. But when I look at this, I feel like that kind of flies in the face of everything Wizards of the Coast has done thus far with 5th edition, which was to not exclude everybody and make everything seem like it's useful. If you find your way to a +1 bow, that whole ability is useless. Which I feel like in this version here, in the Unearthed Arcana, it was still useful. It still gave you a benefit. Now, maybe that was a little too powerful. I don't think so, but maybe. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it didn't do as good a job as it could have done, especially because, like I said, with the exception of changing the name of a couple of arrows and moving stuff around, this one seems more or less untouched. Like, as if it was left alone. And if I recall correctly from what I saw on D&D forums, a lot of people were real pissed at the changes. They loved the original one, probably because it was overpowered. But they were like, nobody that I talked to was really happy about the changes to this version of it. And the fact that those made it through basically with a swap of a couple of abilities and addition of a cantrip seems like it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So, I don't know. That's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to come back and check out the next video, which will be all about the Cavalier, which got a huge overhaul to removing superiority dice and sort of combining it with the Unearthed Arcana Knight to make the final product here. And I think it's definitely in a lot stronger place. So, anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.